Stephanie White is a loser and a liar.
There is a massive, unmistakable gap between getting beaten by a better team and losing because your leadership has surrendered to a toxic spirit. When the franchise gives in to a loser mentality, the damage is infectious. In the high-stakes world of professional sports, the culture of any locker room is defined entirely by the person standing at the front holding that whiteboard. The head coach dictates the standard for accountability, the level of execution, and most critically, how the entire team responds to failure. If the coach accepts mediocrity, the bench players will follow that lead. If the coach makes excuses for poor play, the roster will simply stop trying to fix mistakes. Right now, during the most pivotal season in Indiana Fever history, a dark and terrifying reality is starting to come into focus. The fans are finally waking up. The independent analysts are reviewing the tape, and the truth is staring us right in the face. Stephanie White is publicly acting like a loser. She is lying to the fans. If Caitlin Clark does not distance herself from this specific brand of organizational complacency, it will be a disaster. This could destroy a generational basketball talent. Welcome back to WNBA Pro. We are the only channel on this platform that refuses to protect incompetent coaching staffs, and we will never swallow the corporate spin fed to mainstream media. Today we are dissecting the total leadership collapse currently happening in Indianapolis. We are exposing the blatant lies told at press conferences. This toxic loser mentality is systematically draining the life from this roster. Witness the clash between Caitlin Clark's killer instinct and the absolute passivity of Stephanie White. The front office might have to make a franchise-altering decision much sooner than anyone anticipated. Stephanie White is a loser and a liar. She carries a losing spirit and twists the truth every time she gets near a microphone. Lie after lie after lie. We are going to start calling them Stephanie White lies. These Stephanie White lies are constant. Let us start by addressing the harsh but accurate accusation that head coach Stephanie White is actively lying to the public. When you lead a professional franchise that just drafted the most famous athlete on the planet, transparency and accountability are non-negotiable. The fans are highly educated consumers who demand honesty from their organization. They watch the game film and analyze the advanced statistics. When the Indiana Fever get crushed by 15 points at home and the bench gets outscored 36-7 in one quarter, the coach cannot just say she saw positives. That is not optimism. That is active, calculated gaslighting. It is a coach looking at the camera and lying to the fans just to cover up her own massive tactical failures. When Caitlin Clark shows up to a mandatory practice wearing a visible medical leg sleeve after a brutal collision and Stephanie White dismisses it with a smile, she is being deceptive. She is lying. She is lying to protect the corporate narrative, ignoring the terror of a fan base that watched this player miss 31 games last season due to injuries. The fans are exhausted by all these excuses. They are tired of hearing about a long process. They are finished with the narrative that this team is just learning. You do not draft Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston for a 5-year process. You draft superstars to win games right now. When the head coach relies on the excuse of youth to justify horrific defensive rotations and stagnant offensive sets, she is publicly constructing a built-in safety net for her own failure. This is where things get truly dangerous. While others watch film, Stephanie White is on vacation or doing play-by-play commentary for ESPN. While other coaches are busy game planning and strategizing, Stephanie White is on vacation and doing play-by-play commentary for ESPN. She is not built for this. She is going to ride CC for as long as possible. If the Indiana Fever win a championship, it is in spite of her. If the Indiana Fever win big, it is because Kayla Clark dragged them to the title, not because of Stephanie White's coaching. That specific brand of excuse-making leadership creates a toxic loser mentality. It spreads like a virus, infecting everyone inside that Indiana Fever locker room. Just look at the psychological profile of Caitlin Clark. She possesses an almost obsessive, unheard-of level of pure competitive fire and drive. We are talking about the Iowa Clark, the player who smashed every major scoring record in college basketball history through nothing but sheer, unstoppable willpower and elite talent. The fierce competitor who got in the faces of opponents, who demanded perfection from her teammates on every single play, and single-handedly made the WNBA thrilling for the whole world through her raw, undeniable obsession with winning. She hates losing more than she loves her next breath. Moral victories, she does not want them. She has zero interest in finding silver linings on tape after getting crushed by 20 points in a blowout. She wants to dominate. She wants to break the opposition. She wants to bring home championships. Now, take that rare lethal killer instinct and force it to play under a head coach who smiles after a massive loss. Force her into a system where role players can blow defensive assignments over and over without ever being benched or held accountable. It is a total catastrophic clash of basketball philosophies. Clark needs to stay far away from this losing culture, because settling for good enough is the absolute death of greatness. If she lets Stephanie White's passive, excuse-filled culture rot her mindset, if she starts accepting that her teammates simply cannot hold a lead, the fire that turned her into a global icon will slowly flicker and fade away. We are already seeing those red flags. We see moments of total, paralyzing frustration on court. Clark throws her hands up as the offensive spacing collapses for the 5th time in a row. Management intel. But look, we talk constantly about controlling what you can control. A lot of those injuries from last season, they were really just out of our control. Those injuries that hit us last year were honestly just out of our hands. Stephanie White is lying again, like Mo stepping on a foot? That is supposedly out of their control. So, we have the scientific data and the pieces in place to ensure we are doing things right. But this loser mentality is not just some theory, it is real. It shows up in the actual X's and O's of the Indiana Fever's absolutely terrible offensive execution. Any real basketball analyst can see that Stephanie White's offensive schemes are completely and fundamentally broken at their core. How do you own the ultimate offensive engine? The greatest long-range shooter and the most elite passer in the history of the WNBA, and then choose to run sets where she stands still in the corner like some useless off-ball decoy? That is tactical coaching malpractice of the highest order. Stephanie White is stubbornly trying to force a generational talent into a prehistoric offensive system built for players who are just average. It is like buying a multi-million-dollar Formula One race car and then forcing the driver to stay under the neighborhood speed limit. The entire geometry of the court shifts when the ball is in Caitlin Clark's hands. Defenses panic, rotations crumble. 2 defenders rush 30 feet out to the logo, opening massive lanes and passing windows for Aaliyah Boston deep in the paint. But instead of using that insane offensive gravity, Stephanie White takes the ball away and runs predictable pick and rolls that any decent WNBA defense can stop with their eyes closed. When your coaching choices neutralize your best player, you are not just bad at your job. You are coaching like a loser. And here is what should terrify every Fever fan. Look, we have all played for many different coaches. Personally, I coach the way I would have wanted to be coached myself. And I think Bri and Rima do very similar things. We have all been through the typical ups and downs. We also understand there is a human element to everything we do. And yes, obviously we want to win games. We are going to push each other to be our absolute best. These players are going to challenge us to be better coaches too. But at the end of the day, we are all humans who love this game and value the shared experiences we have together. When I look back on my career, honestly, it is not always about winning those championships. Then what on earth is it about? Only losers talk like that. Only losers talk like that. They claim it isn't about the ring. But for Kobe, do you really think anything mattered more than winning championships? Nope, it was rings or nothing. Same with Michael Jordan. Was it ever about anything else for him? Not a chance. For Larry Bird, too, the title was the only goal. It was championships, period. Look at the greats in any sport. The real nightmare here is the long-term damage caused by this leadership failure. If Caitlin Clark sees that her coach is the ceiling for this franchise, the future of the whole organization shifts instantly. Top-tier superstars in today's sports do not just sit around and suffer in silence. They won't waste their prime years playing for a team that refuses to hold its leaders accountable. If Clark feels her massive potential is being choked out by some truly awful play calling, zero depth on roster, And a coach who keeps gaslighting the fans, she is going to hit a breaking point soon. The Indiana Fever front office, led by Lynn Dunn and Kelly Kroskoff, is playing a dangerous, potentially lethal game of basketball politics. They are stubbornly protecting their coaching staff while fans organize massive boycotts, resulting in humiliating $12 tickets and huge empty sections on national TV. This front office needs to wake up and look at history. Think about what happens in the NBA when generational superstars are stuck with coaches who just aren't good enough. LeBron James had to ditch his home team just to find a championship culture. Stephen Curry never would have built a dynasty if the Warriors hadn't fired their old coach and hired Steve Kerr to revolutionize the entire offensive system. Right now, the Indiana Fever are standing at that very same crossroads. They have the superstar talent. They have global attention, yet they are being dragged down to the bottom by a leadership team that simply lacks a real championship killer instinct. At the very bottom, failure will ruthlessly expose every lie, every flaw, and every tactical weakness inside this entire basketball organization. You can't hide behind flashy social media hype videos when you are down by 15 points in the fourth quarter. You cannot hide behind smiles at press conferences while your star point guard gets battered on the court without a single whistle blown. If this happens one more time, the season is finished. If the Fever step onto the court for opening night against the Dallas Wings on national television, and they display those same horrific defensive rotations, that same stagnant off-ball offense, and the same defeated body language we've seen from the sidelines, the outrage will be impossible to control. These fans have already laid their demands firmly on the table. They want accountability. They want to see Caitlin Clark fully unleashed on the court, not held back. They are demanding a head coach who hates losing every bit as much as the players do. Stephanie White currently holds the most scrutinized, high-pressure coaching job in all of professional sports today. And right now, she is treating this job like a casual weekend league assignment. It's time for the Fever to wipe out this loser mentality before it gets baked into the very foundation of this franchise. Caitlin Clark was drafted to completely transform the game of women's professional basketball. But she can't do it alone, and she definitely can't do it while dragging a failing coaching staff behind her. This is WNBA Pro. We are not here to make friends with the front office. We're here for the raw, unfiltered truth. Smash that subscribe button if you agree that Caitlin Clark is being held back by this current coaching staff. Drop your most brutal and honest take in the comment section below. Does Stephanie White deserve to be fired, or are fans just overreacting to her latest press conference? Give me your analysis in the comments. Hit that notification bell right now because opening night is just around the corner. The drama is reaching a massive boiling point. We will be watching every single tactical decision made on first ed and setter. That sideline all season long.